Okay, we're on days Amid days. See that towards the bottom, 3 lines from the bottom. Shem Rabbi Kiva Amro. We said in the name of this was we're quoting a brisa. We said that there were 4 things that were said regarding Edom Zayman. First one was that Edom Zayman would not themselves become a Ben Grush or Ben Chalutza. Their lineage would not be disrupted because of something that they testified about someone else's lineage. They'd also the second thing was they don't go to a Ari Miklat. They don't go to the city of refuge. Third thing was that they don't pay the kaifer. They don't pay the payment if an ox kills them after 3 times, kills a man again. So they don't pay that payment. Fourth thing was they don't go. They're not sold as an evidivri. They testify someone stole and doesn't have the money. And Rabbi Akiva said they also don't pay on their own admission. Now the Gemara is going to explain that. Shem Rabbi Akiva Amru, name of Rabbi Akiva, they said that they don't pay on their own admission. Edom Zayman. My time with Rabbi Akiva. What's the reason why they won't pay on their own admission? If they admit that they testified and they couldn't, and they weren't there, maybe they should have to pay. So the Gemara explains because Kasavar Kanaso, it's considered a penalty, and the Knasi Mashalom Al Peatzmi, you never pay a penalty on your own admission. We have a pasuk that says Asher Yashian Elikim, that someone that's made becomes guilty in court, and not someone that's guilty, and not someone that's guilty because of his own admission. Amar Rabba says Teda, I'll prove it to you. Because they didn't do an. He's proving it to us that it's a penalty because they didn't do an action. And nevertheless, Edom Zayman could be put to death, even though they didn't murder anyone. They just testified about someone else, and the person that they testified about wasn't killed either. So, and they could testify about monetary things, and they didn't, and nothing was even paid. But nevertheless, they have to pay it. So obviously, that's a penalty and not a compensatory, right? Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Teda, I'll also bring you a proof. Sharei, because Mamin Biad Bailim, Umashalman, because the money is still in the hands of the owners, and the witnesses have to pay. Obviously, it's a penalty. Gemara asks, "My niu, what is Rav Nachman referring to? What does he mean that the money's still in the hands of the owner?" It says Layosamaisa. It means that they didn't do any action. So it says Haina de Rabba. This is exactly what Rabba said. This is so. Why are you telling me the Chaynamar of Nachman? I'm sorry. Why are you telling me that Rab Nachman says Amar Rab Nachman Teda? So aim of the Gemara answers V'Chaynamar of Nachman. Rab Nachman saying exactly the same thing as Rabba. The only thing is the way we said it is that Rab Nachman. It looked like Rab Nachman was saying something different. Really, what we wanted to say is B'Chaynamar of Nachman. Rab Nachman also says Amar Rav Yudah Marav. Rav Yudah says in the name of Rav, Eid Zaymen Mishalim Lefi Chalkai. Okay, he pays according to his portion. My Mishalim Lefi Chalkai. What does it mean that a Eid Zaymen, that a witness will pay according to his portion? This is the what do they call him? Conspiring witness pays according to his portion. Maybe what it means is that if they wanted to make someone pay $100, now we have 2 witnesses. So the person that they're testifying about should gain $100 from this false testimony. And how is he going to gain that? By each one of them paying $50. Yeah. The Gemara says, yeah.
Rabbi, was this the same issue with when the ox did like the killing? Then if it was like redeeming, the value of the owner, like if they would receive double because it was like a partner on the ox?
I don't remember that.
No, I'm asking. I'm asking. It,
I don't remember that he paid double.
no, like if they're redeeming like their soul, and there was two people that were owner of the ox. So how does it work?
I don't remember what the halach is. I'm not sure.
Oh. But is it similar to this?
No, here it's um here we never said that this was considered a. Oh, we did say that this was considered a kapara. No, we said that exile was a kapara. This was an atonement, right? We said exile was an atonement. That's why they don't go to exile because um, b'mezid he doesn't. If he does it on purpose, he doesn't go to exile. Yeah. So in the end of that, we said that we learned exile was because of who? Yeah. Okay. Whatever the case is, the rule is that we they'll pay according to their portion. In other words, if there were two witnesses, they'll pay two. They'll each pay half. If it was three witnesses, they'll divide it into thirds, right? The money will come back in. Ultimately, it'll be the correct amount, but it will be divided up by the witnesses. So if that's the case, that Rabbi Yehuda Marav, you see, Rabbi Yehuda Marav is an Amira. That's what he's saying. The Gemara asks Tanina. That we have a Mishnah later on. It says Mishalsim b'mam and Mishalsim b'malchus. It says when it comes to money, sure you divide it up by amongst the witnesses. When it comes to malchus, each one is going to get their own 39 lashes. We're not going to divide up the lashes. We'll divide up the money. Won't divide up the lashes. But whatever the case is, why is Rabbi Yehuda Marav telling me something that was clearly in a Mishnah? Gemara explains, rather what's happening is that there were two witnesses that testified. One of them becomes an Eid Zayman. One of them, because two other witnesses show up and say that how could you, so and so, Ruvain, how could you say this because you were with us somewhere else? So now what we say is the Mishalim Palgadi day that he only pays half. He doesn't pay for the other half because there were two witnesses there. So the only one of them became Eid Zayman. Gemara asks, "Me Mishalim, could you pay just do you become an Eid Zayman just with one witness becoming Eid Zaymim? But Tanya, we have a brisa, an Eid Zaymim Mishalim Mamanat, she's in Mishnayim. It's not even Eid Zaymim until both of them become Zaymim, right? So of course you can't pay. You need to get both of them. So Rava says, Va'imer Eida Shekariadati. So now what we're coming to is where he's saying that he is admitting that he testified falsely. Where it says Kol Kamine, is that really how it works? Even Shigid Shavin Magid, we won't believe him anyway. Because a person can never, once he testifies, he can't change his testimony. So if he testified about someone else's money, he can't come in and say, no, he doesn't. And he also can't come in and say, no, I testified falsely, because that's changing his testimony. What really, what the way this could work out is if he says, we testified in such and such a court, and another two witnesses said that we were Edim Simon. And so therefore, and now he's coming and he's going to pay half. He's coming to another Besdin saying that, we became Zayman in this Besdin, and now I'm ready to pay. Now the problem is, come on, who would that go like Rabbi Akiva? That can't fit with Rabbi Akiva because Rabbi Akiva says that Edim Zayman, if they admit on their own, if he admits, then he can't pay. Then he doesn't pay on his own. Now it's interesting because I thought the admitting was if he admitted that he testified falsely. Now it's saying that he's admitting that he was caught testifying falsely.
That's how it has it here, Rabbi. It says in bold, says, and then it has in quotations, it says, I have testified falsely. And the quotation says, and then it says, i.e., he confesses. I was somewhere else at the time and could have not been. The rest is like not bold, but and bold it says, I have testified falsely, like you learn, like you said.
Yeah, but now the Gemara is saying, "Oimer hiyadnu v'hu zamnu bebesin pleni." The zamnu means that we were maybe maybe that word is not in is taken out in some Gemara. Okay, let's see. Let's see. The Gemara corrects this in a second. The Gemara
Yeah.
says,
R-
um,
Rabbi, in this case that he's like confessing, is it like he's like testifying against himself?
yeah,
Like it, that's why
yeah.
it doesn't count.
Rabbi Kiva said that that doesn't work, right? So we're asking, so why should it work over here in this case where he's saying that he's only going to pay his half? You see, he's paying his half because his friend isn't admitting. He's the one that's admitting to this. The Gemara says that doesn't fit with Rabbi Akiva. You Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't pay on your own if you come and testify, if you come and admit. Rather, it's talking about rather, what he's saying is that this whole story took place in another court, and we were actually found guilty in another court. We were in the court said that I have to pay. Now I'm showing up and I want to pay. So then he's going to pay his half. Could have thought that maybe we would say that because he's saying that there were two witnesses here that got caught. Hmm. If there are two witnesses here that got caught, so then we would say that 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 he has no right to testify about the other witness. So Kamash Malan is coming to teach us that no, he can testify about the other witness, and he would have to pay this because not he's not testifying to his own guilt. He was already found guilty. He's only testifying that he owes the money. For that we can take the money. Even though we say that no, he is able to testify about himself that he owes the money. Sort of like Hidos Baldin. So there's a rule that if a person testifies about himself, he admits that he owes money. That's like 100 witnesses, right? Okay. We have a new Mishnah. Two witnesses come and testify that so and so has divorced his wife, but he owes her a ksuba and he hasn't paid it yet. Basically means that this person owes 200 zuz. Let's say it was a ksuba of version, 200 zuz. He owes to this woman. He's divorced her and he hasn't paid the money. Um, and what should they pay? In other words, it turns out that it's false because these people were somewhere else. Problem is that it's possible that the husband is actually going to divorce her and actually pay the ksuba, or maybe he'll die and the ksuba will be paid from the inheritance, which means that the witnesses did not cause any loss to the woman. So what are they going to pay when there's no loss? Usually, Adam Zayman have to pay what they wanted to do. But over here, if the woman wasn't divorced yet, they're testifying that she's divorced and they owes a ksuba. But maybe he's going to divorce her and then he'll pay her the ksuba. So there was no loss. They're making him lose money, but it's not really making him lose money because maybe in the future he is going to divorce her and he actually will have to pay. right? So, um, so how do we evaluate what the witnesses are causing? What are the witnesses causing here?
This it sounds even further away than from yesterday, where it was like the direct damages that they were causing. Like it was like the secondary. Like
Well, let's
yesterday,
what happened yesterday.
yesterday was like the secondary. Like if the person, like it was a case that it didn't matter, like if they were able to get that punishment, but it was like if they were trying to give the other person that punishment, that's the punishment that they got. And then here, it's like they're taking it a step further. Like they're considering that she's gonna get divorced, that she's gonna get the money, and then that money is being lost. No.
Uh-huh. I wouldn't associate it with what yesterday was the lineage or the right or
Yeah,
the
but it, it was like a secondary. It was like even
Chayav Golos. Now, um, now we're saying that they're testifying that this person owes money to his wife. Problem is that maybe he actually will end up owing money to his wife. So what's the loss that they're testifying? Not going to end up paying twice. So so maybe this is not even any loss. Maybe it's not causing any loss. So the Gemara says, "Aimdim kama adam ritzlitin b'ksuba shel zu." The fact is that right now the ksuba could be sold for a certain amount of money. We'll see in the Gemara who's selling it. Shim nesalman and skash remesi or shenabayla. That in other words, there's a gamble here. The ksuba could be sold for the price of the gamble. How much would a person want to pay for this ksuba if the husband dies first, or he divorces her, then she's going to get the ksuba. Or if she dies first, then she's not going to get the ksuba. Now, there's two options here how this is being sold. It could be sold by the woman. The woman could say um, she needs money up front, so she sells her ksuba to someone else. Says, if I get divorced, meanwhile, give me money now. If I get divorced, then you'll get the whole ksuba. So on 200 zuz, maybe she sells it for 30 zuz or something. He says, "Give me 30 zuz now, and if my husband dies or divorces me, you'll get the 200 whenever that happens." So how much is that now? That is 30 zuz. Now the witnesses are coming and testifying that he owes her a ksuba. So the value of the ksuba to her at this point was 30 zuz. They're making him pay an extra 170. He could have stepped in, the husband could have stepped in and been the third party to buy the ksuba for 30 zuz. I mean, you would never sell it like that. But he could have absolved himself for 30 zuz from paying the whole ksuba. So therefore, what they're making him pay is 170. Or that's one up. So in other words, the loss over here would be the 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 um, the difference between what the ksuba could be sold for now and what it's actually worth. The other option is that the husband is selling the ksuba, and the husband could sell the ksuba like this. The husband has to give her the ksuba, but he can say, "Look, I have a property that I designated for her ksuba. If she dies, then the whole property. I'm sorry. If I died, then the whole property goes to her. But if she dies, then I keep the property. So I'm willing to sell you this property, but you should know that you may not end up getting it because if I die first, it's going to go to her." So then we have the value of this property has a certain whatever it is now. Let's say um, the property is worth 200 zuz, but when he's selling it now, he can't sell it for 200 zuz because it may not end up going to this guy. It may end up going to the wife if he dies first. But the value of that property is what they're causing. What he can sell it for now is what the witnesses are causing him to lose, because they're saying that he owes it. Okay, so let's take a look at the Gemara. Ketzad Shaman. How do we evaluate what the value of the ksuba is for a sale right now? Could be the husband's value, it could be the wife's value. It's Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says Babal. Rav Chizda says we evaluate what the husband could have sold the property that the ksuba was supposed to be collected from. Rav Nassim Bar Aisha Amar B'isha. Rav Nassim Bar Aisha says the opposite. We evaluate what the woman would have sold it for. Now, the husband can sell it for more, the property for more, because the woman still has to go and collect. And there's another reason also. Oh, because you can actually eat the fruits of the property now while you still have it. Yeah. So the husband has the husband's sale is it's not going to be 30 to 170 zuz. It's going to be maybe 60 to 170 zuz. Put it by the wood. Wood by the no, but put it by the wood for the burning of the hummus. Oh, okay. Rav Papa says Bisha B'Ksuba. Now Rav Papa says that he's accepting Rav Nassim Bar Aisha, but he's limiting it that there is other things here that come into a sale that could come into the sale like this. And that is the woman may own property that the husband's able to eat from nichse malog. So Papa is saying that I'm only referring to the ksuba part of this, not to the nichse malog. There's different interpretations here, but that's one of them. The next Mishnah says, very interesting. It's similar to the last Mishnah, because here also there's really no loss. He's saying, I borrowed money and I have 10 years to pay it back. Comes along these false witnesses and say that you borrowed money and you have 30 days to pay it back. Right? So the money he owes, he's agreeing that he owes the money. The question is if he has the extra time to hold on to that money. What's the value of that time that these witnesses are causing him to lose? Now, it turns out these witnesses are Edom Zayman. They have to pay for that difference in what that holding on to that money is worth. What that, right? It's a 10-year difference, 10-year minus 30 days. So we evaluate what's the value of holding on to that money for 10 years versus holding on to it for 30 days? And that's what they're causing them to lose, and that's what they're going to have to pay. Rav Yehuda says name of Shmuel. Someone borrows money for 10 years, so the Shemitah in the middle will take off the loan. Okay? Because the Shemitah absolves the loan. Every 7 years, the loans get absolved. Well, we're going to see that this is a slight problem with what we just said over here, that he had borrowed money for 10 years. And what's going to come out is that we're going to say that if he borrowed money for 10 years, he really doesn't have to pay it back because the Shemitah is going to come and absolve the loan. And when these witnesses step in and say that you borrowed it for 30 days, then it's not a difference in how much value it is to hold on to money for 10 years or to hold on for 30 days. It's not the contrast. Rather, he's actually now has to pay the full amount. Because if it's for 10 years, he doesn't have to pay anything. If it's for 30 days, he has to pay everything. Okay, that's what the Gemara is going to say. But meanwhile, the Gemara says, even though it's not considered right now when the Shemitah comes, it doesn't say that you can't collect. It's the pasuk of la yigash says you can't force the person to pay. Even though right now, when the Shemitah shows up it's not la yigash. You can't force him to pay, so that pasuk doesn't apply. But when the 10 years, when it comes 10 years and he does have to pay, so then we say that the Shemitah came before and you can't oppress him now to pay. You can't force him now to pay. Okay, Masav Rav Kana, so Rav Kana asked the question on this statement. Who made the statement? It was Rav Yudam or Shmuel made a statement that said that if 10 years, if someone lends for 10 years, that he won't be able to collect because the Shemitah is going to absolve the loan. Kana asks, 1 second, take a look at our Mishnah. That we take a look at the contrast between how much a person would want to have the money for 10 years, how much he would want to have it for 30 days. And the difference is what he has to pay. And if we say that the Shemitah absolves the whole loan, then they should have to pay, they should have to pay the entire loan. Because what they're saying 30 days means that now he has to pay. He has to repay. And if it's 10 years, he doesn't have to repay. So it's really much more than that. Rava says, what we're talking about is that there are certain times when the Shemitah doesn't absolve the loan, and that's if they made a crucible, the way Rashi learns this, or if he gave a mashkin, if he gave a collateral, then the Shemitah doesn't absolve the loan. Very good. The Shemitah doesn't absolve the loan, and that's why all there is the contrast here. We're not saying that there's we're not saying that there's an entire payment of the 1,000. So, okay. The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shemitah doesn't absolve the loan if one of those two things happen. If either the documents were handed over to Bezdin, which is basically a principle, the document that says that the Bezdin is able to collect, right? And then the Shemitah doesn't absolve it. It was instituted by Hillel. Or if it was a mashkan, a collateral, which also means that he's able to collect because it's as if he's had collected it already because he has a collateral. Ikad Amri, there are those that said this halacha in the name of Shmuel, exactly the opposite. Amar Rav Yudam or Shmuel, Amal v'scharil l'sashanim ein shvius mishamatzi. The Shemitah does not absolve it. Even though now when it comes to collect, he's gonna tell him, you owe me the money. But at the time of the 7th year, there was no layigash. When the 7th year came, the lender was not able to approach the person and say, you owe me money. So in other words, that money wasn't even considered a debt at the time of the 7th year because he wasn't able to collect it. So there was no debt there. When did it become a debt? After 10 years, he has to pay it back. During the 10 years, there was no debt. When the Shemitah arrived, because he didn't owe the money then, he only had to pay it later. So we say that it's not considered the Shemitah doesn't absolve that loan. Now, what Rav Kana before asked the question now becomes a proof. Amar Rav Kana, I can prove it to you that this is so, because if you take a look at our Mishnah says, we take a look, how much would a person want to pay to have the money in his hands for 10 years over having it in his hands for 30 days? Now you see, if you would say that the Shemitah would absolve the loan, would have to pay everything. Why doesn't he have to pay everything? Why does he only have to pay how much a person would want to have it for that extra time? Because he actually has to pay it. Shemitah would not absolve it. Rava says it's not a proof. You know why it's not a proof? Because we could say that this is a special case. This is a special case where we say, we say that it's a malva ala mashkin. He lent him the money with the collateral, or he gave it over to the Bestin. And if that's the case, the Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, malva ala mashkin, so it really could be that really, if someone lends money for 10 years, really the Shemitah does get absolved the loan. Why over here in our Mishnah is it not absolving the loan? The reason is because it's he had a special case. He had a prusful or he had a mashkin. Okay. Amr Rav Yehuda Amr Shmuel. Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. I'm al if someone says to his friend, Omenas, on condition, Tishamteni Shvius. I'm lending you money, but I don't want the Shemitah to absolve it. That's the condition for this loan. I want you to pay me back anyway. So Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Shvius Mishametes. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. You can't do that. The Shemitah is going to absolve the loan. When it says Leimek Saver Shmuel, Masna Mashkasa Batayru, L'chol Masna Mashkasa Batayru, it's my bottle. Maybe Shmuel holds that if someone makes a condition that violates, that negates one of the rules of the Torah, we say that the condition is nullified. So here also, he made a condition. We say the condition is nullified. He made a condition that the Shemitah shouldn't absolve the loan. And we say that the condition is nullified. The problem with saying that is Vayitmar, but we have another statement from Shmuel. Someone says to his friend, someone says to his friend, I'm selling you something on condition that you can't claim that I'm overcharging you. Rav says that's not a condition. You can still claim that there's enough, that he's been overcharged. Shmuel says he can't claim that, which means that Shmuel holds that if someone makes a condition that violates a rule of the Torah, we say that it's not possible. We say that the condition stays intact. And here you're telling me that if someone says that he doesn't want the loan to be absolved on the Shemitah, we say that it's a the Shemitah absolves it. It means you can't make that condition. So it's a contradiction in the words of Shmuel. Mari answers it, Marala, Maravanan, Ledidim Mefashlim, in Eda Shmuel. Vanan says that it was taught to me by Shmuel. Shmuel explained to me the difference. He said, Ein Le'elavana, I'm sorry, Al Menashe Ein Lecha Alayana, Ein Le'elavana. Menashe Ein Bayana, Hariyesh Bayana. Achanami, Al Menashe Tishmitani, Tishamteni, B'Shviyas, Ein Shviyas Mishamatze, Menashe Tishamteni, Shviyas Mishamatze. The difference is like this. Did he say, back in the case of the being overcharged, if he says, on condition that you don't claim to me that I overcharged you, so then that's going to work. That condition is going to work. But if he says on condition that there's no concept of Einah, he's saying that the rule of the Torah doesn't exist, so then that doesn't work. And the same thing over here. If he says, on condition that in this case you pay me back anyway, even though I know the Torah says not to, but I want to be paid back anyway, then that's going to work. But if he says on condition that there's no concept of Einah, that the Torah doesn't have the rule of Einah, then that's not going to work. Because there is a rule of Einah. Okay. Tana was taught in a brisa. Amal ves chaveri stam. Someone lends money to his friend. He's not able to claim it in less than 30 days. Yeah, he doesn't. If someone lends money to his friend, he can't claim it back unless 30 days have elapsed. He didn't make up a time of when it's supposed to be paid back. The rule is 30 days is what's given is the time. Okay. Savar Rabba Bar Barchana Kamed Rav Hamema. So Rabba Bar Barchana says in front of Rav, he thinks that this is the shot. He says, Hani Mili Nova Bishtar. That's because there was a document. The person's going to write a document. He's going to want to have time to be able to pay back, and he needs to get 30 days. However, but if you lent the money without a document, then you can collect it even within 30 days. Amalei Rav, Rav says to Rabba Bar Barchana, Rabba Barchana happens to be his second cousin. his first cousin once removed. He says to Rabbi Barbakana, my uncle, which happens to be his uncle also, his great uncle, which is Rav Chia, says, doesn't matter. Both of them have a 30-day time, of a 30-day minimal amount of time when it comes to collecting a loan. Did we have this in the past? That a stam halva shloshim yom? Did we ever come across this? A regular loan is 30 days.
I don't know where I learned this, but I thought that was default.
Right. So this is the source. Okay. Amalei Shmuel or Rav Matana. Shmuel says to Rav Matana, it's interesting because Rav Matana or Rav Masna is a student of Shmuel. But in certain times, when it comes to like translating psukim or different things, Shmuel considers him a bigger expert. So he says, don't sit down on your chair, on your bed, until you explain this to me. This following statement. What's the source that the rabbi said? That you can't collect within 30 days. Tell me the source for that. Well, Amalei, so he responds, it says in the pasuk, says that the time of the 7th year is coming close, the time of the Shemitah. It's understood from what it says, that the time of the 7th year is coming close. Of course, that's the Shemitah year. Why does it have to add in Shnasa Shemitah? Why is it coming to tell me? The year of Shemitah, it's coming to teach us. There is one other type of absolving of the loan. Now, it doesn't mean fully absolved, but it's a time where the loan cannot be collected. That this is if someone lends money, that there's a certain amount of time where he's not allowed to collect it. Because it's been taught that 30 days of a year is 30 days is considered like a year, could be called a year. So when it says that when it says Shnasa Shemitah, coming to teach me that there is another time when the loan cannot be collected, and that would be those 30 days. Okay, let's leave it over here. Will you tell Dr. Stein that we're up to this Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav?
Okay, perfect.
Why do you have to tell me? I'm here.
I couldn't see you. Oh, beautiful.
All right.
Right up to number 20, like on the outro.
That's where we'll continue tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.
And we'll figure out what's going to be Chalamayid. I don't know. So you're going to do, Dr. Stein, you'll do Gimel. No, today we did Gimel. You'll do Daled. Hey. And Vav.
I will try to do Dalet Hey and Vav.
Okay. You let me know where you're up to. Send me a text after Yom Tov. All right?
Yeah. Okay. Hillel, take care of that. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.
Makkos
Okay.
Daf.
Shakaya, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.